Hello everyone. Welcome to this last module of the course on Economics of Innovation. In this course, we will learn about science, technology and innovation policy. Here, you will find that we have three main subsections. First, we will look at the historical context of the science, technology and innovation policy, and we will also understand certain basics about it. Next, we will look at the economic rationale as well as the frameworks that are available which will help in formulating STI policies. The last subsection of this particular module will talk about the evolution of science, technology and innovation policy in India since independence. When we talk about STI, science, technology and innovation policy, the idea is clearly that they should foster the growth and development of scientific research, technological advancement and innovation within a country. The key objectives that we will have is basically first, such policies are expected to encourage investment that will be made in the research and development by the private entities as well as the investment that will be made by the government organizations. Moreover, it is likely to promote the collaboration that can happen between academia and industry, also facilitate the translation of the scientific knowledge into the practical applications. From the point of view of the policy makers, we have already understand that STI and science and technology led growth is very important. So, why would such policies will be formulated? Why should the policy maker be interested in this? In order to bring together the different thoughts which we have throughout this particular course, this slide highlights that such policies are likely to foster development of new industries, which are likely to create new jobs and advance the technology. Such policies are likely to support the social well-being in an economy, improving the overall quality of life by providing better healthcare facilities, by providing cleaner technology, enhancing the communication and transportation. Moreover, from the point of view of the domestic industries, investment in science and technology by the government as well as by the private entities is likely to generate new products or the processes which is going to give them a competitiveness in the international market. Development of such capabilities is likely to translate into the promotion of the exports. Lastly, there are various societal challenges which are being faced by the humanity currently. To name a few, climate change, health crisis, resource scarcity, etc. So, when we are looking at in terms of the development of the newer technologies or the way the things are being done, clearly we have to find ways through technology on how to address these societal challenges. So from the point of view of the policy maker, in order to ensure economic growth, overall social well-being, to determine the global competitiveness of their domestic industry and address the societal challenge, the investment in the science, technology and innovation is very much relevant. As a result, they also have to formulate appropriate STI policies to contribute to these different goals. To start with, Professor Lundwall and Boros has given a very interesting example of guns which are being produced as an outcome of a very successful technology policy during the times of King George VIII. The idea there was that England at that during the first half of the 16th century desperately needed more cannons because of the ongoing war with France as well as forest for the fuel. But what they did support was the expert forgers who were at that point of a time were expelled from France because of their religious faith. In 1541, King George VIII established a Royal Iron Works in Weald, Sussex, under the leadership of William Levitt, who was it was like a kind of a consortium, and the idea was to bring together the expertise from different countries. And authors in fact has pointed out that in this particular classic case, what you find is the different policies related to competition, public procurement, they come together in order to support the development of cannons as such. Another example, it comes from Denmark, which has initially been dependent on exports of corn to England during the 19th century. And what happened during the late half of the 19th century, there was a tremendous reduction in the overseas transportation cost. As a result, for Russia, it becomes much more easy to export material to England as such. Now, because having a competition from Russia in the export market of England at that time, clearly it was leading to a major agricultural crisis in Denmark. And at that time, Denmark was producing animal products and including butter, but the quality and the standardization was major challenges, particularly from the point of view of a transformation of it to an export-led, export a product which could be exported as such. Now, in order to do this, in order to introduce a quality, standardization and other means, what would happen? A major transformation happened, which involved various state and non-state agencies as such. It was seen as a combination of technological and social innovation which combined the efforts of the state and non-state entities. At that point of a time, what happened, Denmark got some technology from Sweden which was related to a separator that was to separate fat from the milk. And moreover, farmers also in Denmark started getting engaged into the cooperative ownership around the new local dairy plants. And as a result, the dairy plants grew immensely to 700. And what we find that the share of Danish in the export of butter to US, it went from 0 to 16%. So once a challenge is being posed in terms of a major destination market where you have lost competitiveness to another country, what you see that a response coming from Denmark whereby they are bringing in the technology, moreover also introducing a social innovation in terms of cooperative ownership and becoming a leading producer and exporter of the butter. So once again, it was another classic example of the policies of the state, and which is now being also supported by the broad social mobilization through the development of cooperatives. Then we have seen the Manhattan Project, when the US government brought together world-leading physicists and scientists from other disciplines to develop the atomic bomb, served to demonstrate essentially the potential of a state support to science and technology. In fact, this was also the major logic behind the Vannevar Bush, who at that time initiated the Manhattan Project, and the report which he has written titled "Science: The Endless Frontier." So we have seen clearly over a period of a time that science, technology and innovation policies are an important concern for the policy makers, whether we have talking about earlier development or after the World War II, and the role which has been played during the Cold War as well. And in the last 50 years, OECD as an organization has also been playing a very specific role. Develop immense literature on different type of policies when we talk about science policy, technology policy and innovation policy, the documentation related to that, moreover the statistics that are required in order to capture the science, technology and innovation developments in different economies. So OECD has been playing a very prominent role in terms of establishing and standardizing the way the science and technology can be understood in an economy, and most importantly can be researched upon, and as a result you will be able to have better outcomes, better information that can be given to the policy maker in order to design the policy further. So the concept of science policy as has emerged and as we see it nowadays has essentially emerged in the post-war era. If you look at it, the broad objectives, the science policy is about allocating sufficient resources to science to distribute them wisely between different activities, and the overall broader objective is to optimize social welfare. Moreover, if you think from a point of view of an economy, many a time science policy could also be a matter of national prestige. That is, who would be able to maybe land a man on the moon first. It could be a concern from the point of view of social security, national security, and then translating into broader economic objectives. Technology policy, here the focus will be specifically on few technologies or the sectors which might be identified as something which is of importance for the economic growth and for the strategic development. For instance, the focus on nuclear power, space technology, computers, drugs, genetic engineering, etc. When we talk about innovation policy, now it brings together science and technology policies while eyeing the final market outcome. Here, the idea is that the science and technology based or science and technology intensive products then now are being produced and they are available in the market. The idea is also to ensure that such products are widely diffused and are available for masses in the economy. That requires a focus on a wider institutional framework, which is now required to introduce these products and also first of all being introduced in the market and then also being diffused in the market. So here I am giving you a very broad idea so that we can very clearly understand how a science, technology and innovation policy may slightly vary from each other. And when we look at, is it that they are absolutely independent of each other or they're mutually exclusive? Clearly, you will find that there are overlaps, but still there is a need to make a distinction. But before we go into that, let us see how OECD has understood science, technology and innovation policy over a period of a time. So in 1963, the OECD document, particularly talks about rationalizing science policy, and the idea was to link it with the economic growth. So this particular document being authored by, Professor Freeman, Professor Raymond as a major contributor, and it emphasized on the national and rational planning. It came in the same year as the Frascati manual, and so this document came in the same year as Frascati meeting on a new manual for gathering R&D statistics. It was taking place at that point of a time basically to collect better data on research and development that can then contribute towards to a better and a systematic policy making. So this report, if you look at it, it aimed at giving science policy a certain amount of a legitimacy outside the narrow circles of ministers of education and science and linking it to the broader objectives of the economic growth. In 1970, you have this report on bringing in human and social considerations on technology policy. This report, the Brooks report, was introduced with the broader social and ecological perspective, and that dimension was then added to STI policies. It also gave a strong emphasis to the need of involving a citizen in assessing the consequences of developing and using the new technology. The new focus reflected a combination of growth, satiation and dissatisfaction with the social consequences of technical change. Therefore, it was also assumed that the room should be given for a wider concern, that is for the, and also the uncritical optimism was related to the technology and its reach was being now challenged. Then in 1980, what you have an innovation policy, linking it with the economic policy, and the experts report titled Technological Change and Economic Policy. It redefined the agenda for the innovation policy at that point of a time in light of the new economic and social context, and its message was that the slowdown of growth and increase in unemployment at that point of a time in the Western world could not have been seen as something that macroeconomic exponentially policies can solve. Neither did the report restrict itself to recommending an increase in investment in science and research and development. So as compared to earlier report on STI, the focus has moved towards basically the capacity of the society to absorb new technologies. The expert included among others Freeman, Nelson and Pavitt, some of the readers we have already and thinkers we have already discussed about. And moreover, the report was published at the same time, with a more traditional document on the innovation. So this was also the time period of the 80s when you see that the innovation policy then began to be regarded as a legitimate policy field. 1990, what you find as that innovation being defined as an interactive process through this particular report. The TEP project, edited and given its flavor by Professor Francos and Lou Sorte as one of the leading external expert. They brought together different coherent framework and also identified a broad set of new research results on innovation. And they used them to point out the new policy dimensions for this particular report in 1990. And if you look at it, starting with the innovation, identifying that innovation as an interactive process and gave a prominent role to national innovation system as an organizing concept. So there was what you realize a stronger emphasis on the network formation, new forms of organization, industrial dynamics than in the earlier OECD, contributions to innovation policy. and moreover the demand side and strengthening the absorptive capacity of the firm as well. Moreover, the feedback from the users and the feedback from the users to the supply side were also given strong emphasis. In 2000, you find that the new economy idea, which was already there in the last 3 decades of the 20th century, you find there is now we are moving beyond the hype which has been created by that. What was that? Because in the middle of 1990s, you find that the idea of new economy based on ICT and a vibrant entrepreneurship which was beginning to diffuse in US, and what we find at the end of the millennium, OECD began to analyze the phenomenon, and its first report came at that point of time in 2001. So these reports were interesting because they were coordinated by the economic department at OECD, and they had treated innovation as a secondary phenomena, and has been and been a spokesperson for mostly from the point of view of a market innovation policy. And the catalogue of recommendation with regard to innovation policy is more extensive. The new economy episode is interesting because it is the first time that innovation became widely accepted amongst economists also as a fundamental factor which is likely to be understood, and moreover contribute to the overall policy recommendation, and becomes a part of the you can say a broader understanding of the how science technology contributes to the economic growth. So it is clear that the basic hypothesis was too simple, and the policy recommendations again before that were mostly colored by what you may say as a pro-market and anti-state philosophy. But over a period of a time, then clearly the role of the state in science, technology, innovation policy from the concerns of innovation also became important. Then in OECD 2021, you find the systems transformation. The idea here is to promote a managed transition to more sustainable, equitable and resilient future. Now, if you go back to our broader discussion on different types of innovation, there also we have realized that over a period of a time, now in the recent times we are talking about responsible innovation, sustainable innovation, that has become very important in view of the major challenges related to climate, and also in order to ensure that the outcome and the fruits of this science and technology related investments are distributed across. So this kind of thought you also see has also seeped into this OECD 2021 report, where the focus is the sustainability, just transition, equitable transition, and in ensuring the resilience of the various economies to the different challenges. So now, earlier I've talked about, given you a very broad understanding of science policy, technology policy and innovation policy. And let us first look at few points of departure that may exist between these policies. Here the objectives can be different, instruments which are used can be different, key actors may be different, economic rationale can be different, and the challenges which are faced are also different. So in case of when we look at the science policy, if you go back to the slide where we looked at the objective, there the focus is the science as such, and here the major instrument would be how do you fund science, whether it is through the higher education sources or whether you want to have public funded research organizations. So those becomes an important instrument in order to work the overall objective of your science policy. For instance, if the key focus of let us say of a government is to do certain amount of a science maybe in the higher education, then the focus would be to fund the higher education sector to maybe establish that kind of a state of the art scientific laboratories, etc. So, or on the other hand, if they think that the separate organization which are not maybe engaged in teaching may be able to do a better job, so then that kind of a funding will be made available. So based on the discussions with the experts, how you want to now fund science, that also will be figured out. Whom you will be funding the science for will also be figuring out. In case Technology policy, if you recall, we have talked about the specific technologies. So clearly, the first instrument in terms of finding out about what the technology policy should be is to forecast, right? Technology forecasting becomes very important. You have to also create institutions which will help in facilitating the technology development and the transfer of that. So suppose we are focusing on electric vehicle, you have to have the training institutions which will train the people on maybe the different problems that may come in the vehicles that are based on the electricity. So that kind of a training institutions to promote technology transfer and development, technology forecasting, that would be the instruments through which the technology policy would be then being you can say executed as such. In case of innovation policy, you will see there will be a variety of instruments, because here the focus is not only to support science or technology, but the focus is to translate what is being produced by science and technology into the products which would be more relevant for the market as such. So in the innovation policy, as the overall objective is to translate the outcome of the scientific research and technological development into the products which will reach the masses, you'll find that the variety of instruments are available depending upon the specific focus as such. Now let us see who are the key actors which will be playing a prominent role in the different type of policy. In case of science policy, as evident, universities, public funded research laboratories, institute of higher education will have a significant role. In case of a technology policy, the institutions which will facilitate the technologic development, we have seen in case of India what kind of institutions are there. You can go back to our discussion on R&D in India and the training institutions which are available. In case of innovation policies, you will find incubators will play a prominent role. The challenges which are faced with respect to science policy, technology policy and innovation are rather bit different. From the point of view of science policy, now what we have seen that the instruments are to fund the scientific research. Then how? So now that the funds has been given for scientific research, evaluation of the outcomes become very important. Many times we have seen the peer-reviewed reports or publication in the peer-reviewed journals is an important metric through which this evaluation can happen. We also might have to make a distinction between good versus a useful research. Sometimes the scientific research may be very revolutionary, but how they translate into the final product may take a bit of a time. Clearly, in such policy initiatives, there is a need for the feedback so that scientific community can understand the requirements, the needs at the ground, and they will help them in that kind of a translation. For the translation purpose, we have seen that technology policy would be more prominent, but the challenges which we face here is what kind of a technologies to support. Like earlier, we have seen examples of maybe a nuclear power or maybe semiconductor. But how do you decide? How do you pick the winners is very important challenge. There, the role of the futuristic and the forecasting with respect to the development of technology will become very important. Moreover, the focus in this case also be how do you promote the domestic competition. Now, if you want to bring in the technologies which are being developed abroad in order to create a competitive environment for the domestic firms, you may realize that the competition may come from the foreign firms and domestic firms may go backward. However, the results have highlighted that competition does play a very significant role in incentivizing the domestic firms also in order to come up with a better technology. So how do you promote that is also an important concern from the point of view of the technology policy. In case of innovation policy, we said that there are variety of instruments which can be available, and there is a possibility that there might be a confusion with respect to which one to do. For example, if you want to now establish incubators, which places will be selected for the establishment of such incubators, whether you give a direct support to the startups by the government or it should be translated through these accelerators or incubators, there is a possibility that there might be a confusion, and as a result that need to be resolved.